Last week on the Al Nicoletti Show.
Brian Driscoll. Brian, what's up, man? It's been so long.
Every action you do it for user experience. What's the purpose of Google? Google's purpose is to answer people's questions. People search in probate lawyer in Florida. Their job is to find the most relevant one and put them at the top of the search engine. I look at a website like a Christmas tree. You got the home page and then the category pages, then it goes into like the blogs and internal pages. We want to make every single page relevant for specific phrases.
Interesting. I've actually never heard that kind of analogy before.
So a lot of people have words on their website that aren't original. It's called duplicate content. So the first thing I would do is go through and make sure all of the words on your page are by yourself. Reason is, say we have two different websites with the same words in the same order. How's the search engine know which one's more relevant?
That's a whole topic of its own, right?
I've learned that I do best being uncomfortable.
Being uncomfortable is where your growth happens the most.
So in a Facebook ads, the reason that they can find out what your behavior is, it's called a Facebook pixel. But when you're running ads, if you don't have that pixel on your website, their algorithm can't see what people are doing on your website, and it's harder to optimize.
What's the biggest takeaway for you throughout this journey of learning this stuff?
Say you're a real estate investor. When you get into this space, focus on what's making you money versus playing around with tools.
That's huge advice.
SEO is like owning the house. Google and Facebook are like renting the house. Because when you pay ad spend, you get traffic, and then when you pull the ad spend away, it disappears immediately.
Thanks again for jumping on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. We'll talk soon.
That was a lot of fun with Brian last week. I learned so much about SEO and some things that you really have to focus on when you get into SEO, looking at Google ads, trying to figure out all those little tips and tricks. If you missed any of that episode with Brian Driscoll, check it out. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify. It's under YouTube, under Al Nicoletti. You can catch all the micro content that's constantly dropping on the Al Nicoletti Show on all those platforms. And you can find all the stuff that's dropping on Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti. So if you missed any of that, it's great. And all the amazing guests that we've had on the Al Nicoletti Show. I cannot wait for tonight's episode because we actually have never had somebody talk about developments, like real estate developments, building it from the scratch of the surface of land and going up and making some crazy cool concepts. I don't think we've had anybody talk about developing. So it's going to be a great episode. And I want to check the feed because I don't know who's on tonight because you all know it's a live show. Everybody's going to be here. Teresa's here. Kevin's listening in. I love it. We got the crowd. We got the crew. Everybody take notes. I see all of you watching. Take notes. I got my pen. If you ever see me down this way, I'm actually taking notes on what the guest's talking about. Or maybe I'm thinking about something that's actually happening and going on right now. So I'm ready to go. Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. You know we're ready. So let's do this thing. Hey, everybody. My name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their community that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate, and bringing on the best in the industry to talk about all the amazing areas in our real estate world. Whether it's developing, whether it's getting into SEO, marketing, branding, you name it, we bring on the best of the best every week live so you all can interact with everybody on how you could take your company to the next level. On my show today, I have Rick Melero. Rick gets into so many cool things when it comes to development, how to vet builders, getting into passive income, active income, the differences, and getting into some unique special projects in our real estate world. And we're going to dive in on all this stuff today. We're always fixing the audio and stuff that's always happening. It's a live show, you know. I can tell you about a million things that happen with this show and how we got to work through it. So we got that settled. And before we do this, something I've been doing lately is opening thoughts on my show, opening thoughts on what's Al Nicoletti thinking, what happened this week, what's some thought that just came into my head that can help all of you out there. And my thought is change is good. Change is good. If you are thinking about trying something new, if you are thinking about tweaking something in your systems, your model, your firm, your brokerage, your personal life, your health, you name it, go for the change, regardless of what anybody else thinks, who has a comment to it. Everybody's got a different path, a different way of doing things. You do it the way you want to do it, and you make the change you need to out there. The change that you're going to make is good, and you want to be confident in it. And I say that because there are times when all of us as entrepreneurs, we're in business, we're making decisions in our practices. We have to make changes, and we have to make pivots. And sometimes those pivots are necessary, but just know that they're good, and you're doing it. You're going to get it right, and you're going to figure it out. So that being said, I want to dive into the guest tonight, Rick Melero. He is going to drop some awesome stuff. I think we're even going to be able to show a presentation. Hopefully we don't have like a Steve Rosenberg-ish moment where like the screen's just like doing this. So we're going to make sure we get him all out here and talk about this stuff. So let's bring him on the show. Without further ado, Rick Melero. Rick, what's going on?
How are you? How are you?
Let's go.
Super excited, man. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's crazy how we even connected at the West Palm Beach RIA trade show. Rick was speaking, and after Rick, we did a whole panel. And I remember I walked in, and Rick's talking about these huge development projects that they're working on, really unique things with the way that they're doing the homes and the way that they're developing and building, how they're working with a lot of wholesalers and working with a lot of other investors that are doing JV partnerships. And I mean like big deals. And the next thing you know, we're all on a panel together, and I'm sitting next to Rick, and I'm like, this guy really knows what he's getting into. So we got him, this is what it's all about. Rick, I could go through a whole intro bio of how you got started, where it all came from, and how you jumped into real estate. But I really want to boil it down to one question, which is, what did you discover as the biggest lesson you learned jumping into real estate?
That's a heavy question. There's a lot of beautiful elements to real estate that have obviously put us in a position where we are today. I think the biggest lesson that I learned is that there truly is a difference between earning income and letting your income do the work for you. And I believe that's one of the beautiful things that I've really learned throughout the years in this space is that there is space for us to be able to be active investors that are generating revenue from our efforts. But then it also requires, if you will, for us to be disciplined enough to then take some of those earnings and reinvest them. In other words, looking at money like an employee so that you can put your money to work for you so that later on, when your passive income exceeds your active income, you are truly a financially free individual. And I believe that's been one of the biggest takeaways that I wish I would have gone back when I started the career and said, focus on this. It would have been a completely different story. But guess what? That's part of life. We get to learn, grow, and we're on this journey together. So
that's right. Yeah. And you're just going to figure it out as you go, and trial and error. That's how it all goes. But that's a great takeaway from it. Right. And I think we'll dive in on some of those strategies and secret sauce ways that you could be successful using those mediums of leveraging the money the right way. So hindsight's 2020, you can help show the way to those that are going through this experience right now. And Rick, another one that has really dawned on me as being a great question to ask you all, because we are entrepreneurs always grinding in our business every day. We have employees. We are making calls, emails. We're always trying to keep the business churning and to scale that business. But we have to do it where we are always performing at a high level, at high performance all the time. What would you say are some things that you do in your business or your life that help keep you at peak performance at a high performance level as an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. Well, I will say, having built a team and many years of doing this, I've had amazing successes with teams, and I've also had horrible failures. And so I've learned a lot about teamwork. And I really believe that really setting up a business that has the right culture, that hires for that culture, that ultimately truly leverages the technology, like CRMs and time management, have been essential in order to be able to get the right visibility to ensure that the team is actually doing the work to the standard that is required, so that then you can really focus your efforts on working on the business and not in the business. And there is a major difference in that. Also, another component to that is really empowering people and giving them kind of their runway, the area where they can focus on growing and expanding. Because I've had several team members that once we gave them the expectations and we gave them a path to success, they've not only succeeded, they've exceeded our expectations and have helped the company grow in ways I never even imagined possible. So it really is developing a culture and setting up those systems and then unleashing that right team to really take it to the next level. It's not about Rick, it's about us as a team. And when you get to that point and you have a standard of a team that really is shooting for excellence, there's really no stopping it.
And it really takes the leadership skills to guide the team and to help let them grow, right? To show them the way, to show, because they are the talent, right? They are the talent out there that they know what they're doing in their unique skill sets, whatever that is in the development world. But I love what you talk about, which is culture. It's there are certain values that the company stands behind that you make sure that the employees understand that this is the way we envision the company going. This is the core values, what we believe in and what we stand by, and helping them grow. So I love that. I think, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, or everybody's got a different answer to this. And that's helping people grow or stay at high performance. That's huge, right? So I love that. So, Rick, I think what's really interesting about what you get into with developments is, let's just say you're finding land or you're finding areas that you can build on, right? And whether you're buying the property or getting it from a wholesaler or buying direct to seller or whatever method you're doing, one of the first things I'm sure you're getting into is due diligence, right? Either on the deal, right? Or maybe it's something existing already. I know we could probably get into so much with due diligence and getting into and maybe where the right place is to build or the right material, but on a surface, a just a general level, basic understanding. What do we need to know about due diligence for development projects?
That's a great question. And you're right. We can really get caught up in the weeds here. So I like to tell people that typically what we end up doing is we have two main strategies that most likely we'll end up talking today about. And that is the two types of development projects that we are doing. And it's interesting because number one, it's not that I am a developer, I'm actually a private lender. And you were talking earlier about how you pivot. And so what we've started doing is pivoting our strategies and tailoring them based on the market conditions. Because what I've learned over the years is that the real estate cycle doesn't tell you when to buy. It shows you how to buy within each stage of the cycle. And so all we're basically doing is taking those lessons and applying them into the real estate market and pivoting to the strategies that are suitable in this market. Now, with that said, whenever we're looking for projects that we're going to be acquiring, land that we're going to buy, there's a couple of ways that we acquire. One of them is we obviously purchase the land ourselves. The other one is we work with operators that we're financing already that have already proven themselves. And then we end up just basically becoming their joint venture partner. We finance the deal. We get a piece of the action doing less work. Now that I've set that stage, the preliminary piece, if we were talking about affordable housing, for example, is there's a completely set criteria for developing affordable houses. And to be honest with you, unless if I really find a great piece of land that I know I can subdivide and it's not going to be a lot of work for us, what I like to do is ultimately buy what is called infill lots. These are in strategic communities. There are plenty of parcels. I'll give you a couple of ones that I'm working on right now. I'm building in Lakeland. I'm building in Pasco. I'm building in St. Petersburg. We're building in areas in Alabama and parts of Tennessee. So we've kind of diversified. And what I typically look for is those communities where the growth is happening. We're looking for lots that don't necessarily require for us to do site work. And that's the preliminary item. And again, we can go in detail. And in a minute, I'll show you how we go from layer to layer. And we have a set size of lots, depending on the strategy as well. So we already know the parcel has to look around this size It's got to have this type of distance between the utilities. And if there is going to be a septic, we need to make sure that there's enough size on the land for the septic system or the well. And so there's a preliminary piece, and we're happy to share that with everyone later on, so we don't have to get into the details.
Yeah.
Now, once we go to contract, it is subject to our due diligence. So from that point forward, then we go through the process of working with our already vetted contractors and builders, and we have them put together the final bid for that construction. They also do the preliminary research on the land, the soil samples. I mean, there's a host of things that happen during the official quote unquote due diligence process. Now, once they've completed the work, I've just learned over the years that it's worth taking that specific bid and that breakdown and getting a feasibility study from a third party company. For what they'll do to make sure that we're putting together the right bid is they do like a second review over the bid to ensure that the scope of work that we're looking at is in line with what that project's going to require. And part of that due diligence also requires for them looking in the county and city records to make sure that the type of home that we're going to build is most likely to be approved or within the guidelines and parameters of a homeowner association, for example. Mm-hmm. And so those are essential due diligence components that we need to make sure we vet. And that's the deal side, right? Simultaneously, part of my team is also doing evaluation to say, what is the true exit price for this project? And then the next question is, do we have multiple exit strategies? And as we get into the weeds, I'll share more about that. But
yeah, so you bring up a great topic, which is exit strategies. I don't know if you want to get into it now or later, but that's probably got to go into a little bit of the due diligence factor, right? Like if you're investing in, let's just say, a more metro area, mm-hmm. is your exit strategy more to let's keep it for a little bit on the long term and then revisit the situation later and maybe sell the portfolio off to a hedge fund or a different buyer, or maybe you're in Lakeland or Pasco and it's more like build, flip out. Like how are you implementing your exit strategy at a early stage so you kind of predict where you're going with it?
Now that's a perfect question that segues into what we're going to talk about, because technically I look at it based on just look at real estate investments as a portfolio, right? So when I'm looking at developing, I'm not looking at, I'm building. What I'm looking at is where in my portfolio does this specific property fit? Now, I only build two types of properties, okay? I build affordable homes that are going to produce either cash flow or I can sell for retail. And so that's the beginning that we're going to talk about today. And then the other component of construction that we do is also for very unique markets that we'll dive into and show you pictures so you kind of get the picture of that. But those projects I have a completely different exit strategy for. So let me just begin with the affordable housing, okay? The way I look at real estate investment in today's uncertain market is that I don't want to be caught building a bunch of homes for $500,000 or $600,000, which in Florida, you're above the median price at those numbers. And then when financing has issues, which we've seen, then I'm stuck holding the bag on a $500,000 house, okay? And even if I have to rent that property, my mortgage payment is going to go up pretty high and the cash flow is really not there to sustain it. So really my main strategy is to find land that within the building cost that I've already negotiated, I am able to build a property that if the market were to shrink, I can still rent for cash flow. I can do rent to own. I have multiple rental strategies, but that I can also put on the market. And the reason why it will sell, and even during Christmas, we were selling homes when everybody shut down, because the properties that we're selling are brand new construction. In a minute, in fact, if we can pull some of those pictures up in a minute, that would be fantastic. Because what you'll see is we're trying to make the properties nice for an affordable house. And remember, we're below the median price. And so when people start analyzing their situation, they start going, I can either pay rent retail or I can move into a brand new house that has these beautiful little amenities within it. And what's beautiful about this strategy is the fact that I would rather own this home and build equity long-term. And so for that reason, we really haven't suffered even November, December with a major lull in real estate transactions, because the product that we're delivering is a nice product, but it's a product below the median price. So in essence, we're affordable. So that's one of those strategies. Not sure if we're able to show the pictures because you'll kind of get an idea as I'm talking about what are those little nuances that we're looking for.
Yeah,
we're gonna that construction.
We're gonna pull that up, and while Mike's pulling that up, got a question for you, because you could build these types of homes in the middle of, I don't know, Putnam County or middle of North Florida, like
Mhm.
near Tallahassee and middle of nowhere. And the desirability for somebody to buy it there is, who knows, maybe it's high, maybe it's low. But like, and before we get to that slide, you picked out those markets like Lakeland and Pasco and St. Pete. Yeah. But Lakeland and Pasco, I mean, what made you choose those markets as using these affordable housing strategies and luxury markets?
Man, now you're pulling the gems. All right, so there is a legitimate method to our madness. Okay, I call it the concentric ring theory, and what it means is that I typically look for markets that are extremely, really, like I would say, literally without exaggeration, they're markets that are very expensive. They're very active. So let me give you an example. Tampa Bay area. It's a beautiful market. It's very explosive right now in this market, even regardless of the circumstances. What I like to look for is, generally, I'll look at a market, and within that particular market, what I'm looking for is within 30 to 40 miles, there's generally a working class community. And I want to make sure and double check that those communities are commuting to Tampa or to key areas, because they really technically cannot afford to live in Tampa. And so this is really the blue collar families that are working in Tampa, but at the same time, these individuals, they don't want to pay the premiums to rent in Tampa when they can drive 30 minutes out. And so not all of those markets are successful. So you really have to do your due diligence. But we have found historically that if I'm looking at Tampa, the two top most successful concentric rings are tied directly between Lakeland and between Pasco. And so that's the reason why we selected those strategic markets. And they give us the best bang for the buck, because my construction cost is the same whether I build in Tampa or whether I build in Lakeland, right? The difference is, even though my price might be 20, 30% lower, my cost of building is exactly the same. My land is cheaper, and I'm able to maximize my return. Now, if I did have to hold, here's what's crazy. My rental income in Tampa does not justify the land cost in comparison that if I'm in Lakeland, my cost basis is lower, but my rent only dropped by 20%. So you're talking about a couple $100 max that you're getting less on these properties. And so for that reason, it creates the perfect storm for somebody that can control cost in their projects. And so that's an example. And I've done that in many other markets, but specifically in Tampa, since we're talking to an audience nearby, that's one of the reasons why I picked those markets that were booming, growing, but still they're truly being supported by a major hub.
Yeah, but you're also not going to a market that's totally distant from that, right? Like if you were looking at, I don't know, if Lake's not probably a good example, but I don't even know what's above Pasco. Hernando's above Pasco. It's like, but you're not looking at those markets yet. Like, you're trying to find like things that are really skirting around those metro areas, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, it doesn't mean that there are no opportunities, but here's the one thing that I have done. We have literally funded hundreds of millions over the years. And even within our portfolio, the default ratios that, if you took a look between credit risk and asset class, the properties that were in rural areas were at highest risk for defaults. And so we're very conscientious about not going to the point that is extremely rural, because then you don't really have a potential exit strategy, or at least you're going to have a harder time.
Right. All right, let's show these slides. So Rick's got some really interesting slides for everybody. If you're listening on Spotify and iTunes and you can't see this, you definitely want to hop on YouTube and watch this. But let's definitely see this. So, all right, walk us through this, Rick. Did you show this at the trade show?
No, no, not at all.
Exclusive. All right.
So yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Just for you, man.
I love it.
So just to give you a visual. So the affordable strategy, again, what we're looking to do right now is build affordable houses. The definition of affordable housing for me is that I'm building and selling a product that is below the median price in those markets. Okay. So if a house should technically sell for $325,000, $350,000, I should be at $275,000 to $295,000. Okay.
Gotcha.
Because that always makes me the best product in that market. Now, could you go to the next slide? Now, I'm not talking about building a Taj Mahal, but take a look at this home. This is a standard Florida home. You will have some other properties that obviously are to the market. So Alabama will not look like this, even though it might be a very similar floor plan. If you go to the next picture, however, what I want you to see is the entrances. We're picking neutral colors. We stage some of these as you see here. We have the beautiful floors. nice baseboards. Go into the next one so we can kind of take a look at some of the finishes. You see a bathroom for a standard home. If you just went to a standard builder, you're not going to have this level of upgrades. Okay. Now, when I started, I was building a lot less quality builds, but we've been slowly shifting and evolving because based on the feedback, even consumers that are going to buy below $400,000, let's say, they still want to feel like they have something that's semi-custom. So what we've done is rework the budget and increased it in some cases so that we can do these kind of bathrooms that make people feel like, wow, I got a semi-custom home and I'm still under $400,000.
Wow.
Right? Go to the next picture real quick.
And Rick, it looks expensive. Like
it does.
The optics behind it look like, wow, how much money did you put behind that?
Exactly. And that's the beauty, right? It's really working with the team that picks the selections so that when you have those finishes that look like quality, you have an end product. Look at the ceilings. I mean, just building out those little small tray ceiling, the updates. Go to the next slide. You'll see the kitchen with the backsplash. I mean, these are all standard finishes, but with the right selections, you can really make a product that's affordable for any customer to say, my goodness, I have a brand new house. The house is amazing. There's all these little tiny upgrades in this home. You can go to the next picture so you'll see. Yeah. You have the living room. Again, it's a small space. This thing is under 1,600 square feet. You can go to the next picture there.
But even the light.
I'll pause there because I want to show this one in a second here. But go ahead. You're saying go back. Yeah, right there. Go ahead.
Yeah, the light, bright colors just make it look open.
Absolutely. And it's really just building out a house that looks like quality. But let me tell you what I didn't have to deal with. Buying a house that I have to rip apart to upgrade and finding there's mold in the walls. I don't have to worry about replacing a roof and finding that the trusses are bad or that the plumbing was wrong. So what this allows me to do is to build an efficient home that has all the right finishes at an affordable price so that I can exit and make a solid profit, but I'm still an affordable product. And that's really an essential piece that has really been an amazing tool for us. And it's working in Alabama, it's working in Tennessee, and obviously it's working in Florida. And that's kind of what that strategy is. And I can tell you, it puts us in such a different category than the majority of the investors in the marketplace. And so this is a perfect picture. Now, there is also an additional evolutionary market strategy that we did when we saw that the banking industry started shifting. And I don't want to talk about it in too much detail, but if you go to the next slide, you'll notice that's not the same house.
Right.
What we also realize, guys, is that it's all about potentially building cash flow in the event that there is no financing available. So we started testing out these. This is really technically, for all intents and purposes, is considered a mobile home.
Yeah,
we did a deal with Bulk for manufactured homes. But what you see is, look at the skirting. The skirting on this particular property is not your white skirting. It's brick. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And what you'll notice is that these homes look new. They don't look like a crappy mobile home like everybody has thought a mobile home is. And they are all upgraded to a certain standard. So here's the strategy that we found here with one of our operating partners. We were funding him as a lender, and then we loved the model. We jumped in, and I think we have 15 or 17 of those right now actively in our market, in our internal deals. What's cool about this is now we can go a little bit more rural, but my exit price on these homes is $210,000 to $250,000. So I'm offering a brand new product. And here's the deal. It's not a mobile home I'm selling, because when we order these manufactured homes in bulk, and we receive the actual DMV title to it, we relinquish the title while we're pulling. And then the county produces, because everything is to standard, a deed to the property. So this specific strategy that is much more affordable for me, it's a much faster approach for us, gives me the ability to build affordable homes leveraging manufactured housing, but return a deed to the consumer. And here's what's cool. When the consumer wants to buy, they can get FHA, VA, any Freddie, Fannie Mae products, because what they're buying is a home, not a mobile home.
Right.
And so that's a perfect strategy. We love it. The activity on this has been insane. And if God forbid the market shifted, one of the things we learned is people who are renting aren't necessarily going to pay a premium to pay for a house versus a brand new manufactured home. It's almost at par. And so, right. But my cost, man, if I told you my cost on this, I'd have to shoot you, man. It's insane.
Well, wait. So your exit, what you said, 250?
250 is the highest price I sell, which is literally 50 to 75,000 below my houses.
Right. So how much were you all in on this? We got to know
Right.
that number.
This is being recorded and is live. So like, I'll take an example. Between the land, the septic, the contractor, everything. I mean, all in carrying costs, I'm at $135,000.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Those are great numbers. Hey, no, that's what works.
Yeah. Go to the next slide. You'll see kind of the back. Again, there's a couple of tricks to the trade, but I just want to kind of show you. I mean, it is a manufactured home, but it's incredible how that one little upgrade on the bottom makes such a difference on the optics of the home and the aesthetics. Interior is nice. Again, it's all brand new. And yeah, we can't sell this thing for $350,000. But you know what? I'll sell it for $210 if I'm in it for $135 with my eyes closed.
And it does not look like a mobile home. Like on the bottom, you see that brick, because usually the mobile homes have those fence looking structures, and it just devalues that.
It does. It looks cheap. It looks cheap.
Yeah.
So that's another strategy. And obviously, if you want, we can pause the screen for now while we're talking, and then I'll talk about my real favorite strategy, because this is I call it my bread and butter. I've learned from many investors that, boring is good, right? So that's boring. That's good. It's consistent. It works in good times, bad times. The other strategy is that's a little bit more advanced, and obviously, but they're passion projects for me.
So, right. Those are things that you kind of keep, like you pick it up, you put it down, you kind of keep it there as an opportunity that just keeps the business churning on that end. But what's really making things run is the luxury market.
Well, here's the deal. One of the things that I've learned over the years, and we've been talking about, like, what would you do if you had to go back, in the beginning of time and where you started? And honestly, what I've wanted to do is be strategic in this market, but also I want to enjoy my life with my kids, my wife. And so what I've been trying to do is little by little pivot my strategies to not only make me money and not only build a lot of passive income, but to do projects that I can enjoy and create an adventure with my family. And I think that is so essential because there's more meaning behind it. And so that's kind of what led us on the journey of diversification. And so now, just as we talked about affordable housing strategy, right, which we talked about, there's a purpose. I can rent it. I can rent to own it. I can sell or finance it, or I can sell it affordable. So I've got plenty of exit. So when I started looking at short-term rental properties, I thought that's a great idea. I'm lending money right now. So I'm a student people pay me interest and they're teaching me. So I saw people doing short-term rentals and they were doing really bad. And I'm like, that's not a good thing. But then I have a couple of people that I'm lending to and they're crushing it. And what I mean by crushing it, man, I've got a couple of borrowers that have built out these incredible short-term rental properties that are grossing $350,000 a year, just one house. And so I started saying, well, what are you doing that is so special? What is your management? And so we started working. Some of them, I liked them so much, I partnered with them. And at the end of the day, it's just a big collaboration. So what I want to show today is I'm really passionate about this. This has really helped us to generate revenue, but also to create exposure to our cause, which I'll talk a little bit later at the end, which is our purpose, which is investing with a purpose. But if you want, now as we get to the next picture, the difference here is we're not going to go to Pasco, obviously, in this slide that you saw here. I love Pasco. I love my people out there in Pasco. Don't get me wrong. I'm super grateful. But if you go to the next slide, we're going to talk strategically about building luxury housing, which gives us the ability to deal with a market where people are buying cash or as a second home, because this property can produce revenue. And what we have found is that there are specific markets in different parts of the US and in the world that is a hub for families that are affluent to go on vacation, fall in love with the place, and then ask themselves, honey, how do I get the second home here? We retire, we want to live here full time, but I can't justify paying $2 million for a house that's not paying for itself. Oh, wow. You mean this property also produces X amount of money per month? Why don't we do this, honey, and buy this cash? And this will be our cash flow so that when we're ready to retire, we can come to our favorite place in the world. Do you follow that concept?
It's kind of interesting. So are you making these homes or developing these homes, and then you have a strategy where maybe you Airbnb it or you VRBO the whole thing, and then the families come in, they visit for like a month or a week, and then they have that epiphany, and then they're going, wait, who's the owner of this property? Then they're contacting the owner, and then it's Rick Melero, right? Like,
yeah. Or you come in the house and you're like, wow, this place is amazing. And in the house, it says, how would you like to own this house?
Yeah, and they're saying, well, wait a second, how do we do this? I mean, how do we get into this? Well, wait, we're doing it ourselves right now. We just got a Airbnb. Wait, we can do this for other people. Interesting, because Rick, before you dive in, I'm just thinking. I was looking on VRBO the other day at what are properties doing on the short-term rental market in Coral Gables, and there are these monstrosities. I mean, huge properties with pools, and they're going like 4,000 a night.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's crazy. So let's take a look at this. This is gonna be really cool.
So let's begin. So if you want to go to the next slide, what I want to share with you here is I am extremely picky about which projects I get involved in. And I begin with strategic locations. So you're probably not going to see me, even though Sarasota is a great market, you're probably not going to see me trying to do a strategic project like this. I want to go to prime areas where I see the growth potential. Now, I honestly have COVID to thank for getting to Tulum, Mexico, because if it wasn't for COVID freaking people out, the funding partner of this deal would have stayed on the deal. This got backed out and left these guys hanging. Long story short, because people knew we were a lender, they said, why don't you call Rick? He's crazy enough. I think he can work with you. And long story short, it took me a year and a half to really get comfortable, but we ended up partnering and working on this deal. Now, what I want you to look at is the line that you see on the screen that's got all the little stars is the beach area in Tulum. So let me give you a picture for those that have never been to Tulum, Mexico, which is by the water side, okay? Imagine that there is currently at this moment no airport, even though they're building, and I knew about that. But here's what's interesting. For people to come and hang out in Tulum, Mexico, they have to fly to Cancun. They have to get in a rental car or rent a car, and they have to drive an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to Tulum in order for them to enjoy this area, okay? Just to give you an example.
Right.
During peak seasons, that little tiny road that you see there, it could take from one hotel in the entrance all the way down to the last club 3.5 hours. That's how packed this place is. Almost 3 million people on average are coming in, and it's projected to reach 9 million in the next 2 years.
Wow.
So this place got so big and exploded so much that now there's an airport. And if you see the bottom left side where there's a little lagoon, which by the way, I own that land, is literally an airport that's less than 5 minutes away from there is now being built in 2024. It was just announced it'll be completed. So just imagine the explosion of what's going to happen. So the reason why I'm setting the context is everybody else is buying properties and speculating for the growth in Tulum is in that other top section that says Tulum, those squares. If you see Villa Mamba, which I'm going to show you right now, that's the project we're currently building as we speak. And it's inside of an exclusive community with 7 exclusive entrances to the beach area. So you don't even have to go around. So again, I really looked for the unique location that is strategic for future growth. I knew that there was going to be a new airport coming because I have some great contacts that helped us out. And so I knew we were positioned for success. Now let's go to the next slide. So this was a render of Mamba, which in a minute I'll explain kind of how this evolution is because there's 2 strategies here. You can go to the next one. And these were the renders as we were coming up with the conceptual project. The main concept that I have found is if you are going to go and work on luxury properties, you don't want to be the same guy that everybody else is doing the same model. So we wanted to go extremely like modern, mixing a combination of concrete with jungle. Go to the next slide. You'll see there's a lot of pools. So there's a lot of water amenities in this project.
Look at that.
Rooftop pool. And we also did a little unique thing where we did a small little ad. We put this on social media and said, would you move here? Would you come and stay here for vacation? This picture went viral. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have seen this and liked it and shared it. So we knew we had a winner with the design. And that's just, by the way, a little indirect strategy that we use. You can go to the next part. The floor plan is designed, again, as you can see, to have multiple different water attractions. What we wanted is to have a property that has water, it's got earth and nature, and that is sleek and modern, so that successful people that want to go to Tulum, who want to be one with nature, can be one with nature, but not have to worry about the mosquitoes picking them up in the middle of the night and flying them across. And so this is the way that we were able to structure the deal, which then led to how do I take this to the next level, right? And so the way that we've been working on taking it to the next level is we realized that, yes, his capital has been around for a long time, and we're blessed to have a good brand. But let's face it, if you were to compare my brand versus Porsche, Porsche wins. They got an awesome car, right? They have a huge brand. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, if we had the right product and quality information with marketing materials, and we have a unique location with amazing amenities and future growth, could it be that maybe I can make some calls, reach out, use my network, and see if I can get an agreement to do an alliance with a valid, successful brand? And so if you go to the next slide, that became one of the big strategies in Tulum, Mexico that we did. We said, how can we take this luxury product and take it to the next level? And so we leveraged our contacts and we started negotiating with a local Porsche dealership that gave us the local approval to do a partnership based on the specs of quality workmanship. And go to the next slide. And so now we took the short-term rental, which is what we're building, this beautiful luxury home, and we've included a Porsche vehicle in it so that now we have the Porsche villa in the property.
That's really interesting. So really taking that luxury item that everybody can identify and connecting it with the house to show that this is luxury too, or it's that kind of lifestyle, right?
Exactly. It's the branding that ties with it. So now if you have the only Porsche villa in Tulum, Mexico, in an exclusive area, people are going to rent it just for the fact that they can take pictures and say, I stayed in the Porsche villa, right? And so there's a lot of due diligence that you have to do. And there's a lot of elements of stacking value, but this is a perfect way to advertise and make sure Porsche is getting a value, because a local Porsche is also getting advertisement.
Right.
But also from our perspective, we now have a product that is completely unique. It is tied to direct luxury, and we're able to capitalize. And so that's an example of a project we're working on. And here's the thing, Tulum is great, and I have a lot going on. I can't even say I'm finalizing a contract right now with another brand to build 8 villas. And when that deal is done, it's going to be awesome. It's a huge brand. And not only do they stand behind the brand, I just found out that part of the deal is they give us all of their customer base to advertise the home to see if they'll want to buy it. So it's crazy. But that's an example of stacking different strategies. So now let's pause for a minute before I show you the other one. As a builder, I am controlling my cost. I'm building in a unique area. I'm adding very special amenities to this particular project. And then to make it even more exclusive, I'm bringing in an additional brand to tie that luxury with it.
Right.
So when I go to rent this property and make $200,000-300,000 a year on the rental property, I have options. I can literally be renting this property for cash flow while I'm marketing it for sale. And now I'm selling it with the house fully furnished and a Porsche. So think about the value stack on that. So you go on vacation with your family, you go to this place and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And then I show you the rental income and say, how would you like to own it as your second home? And so it's incredible how many people just offer cash because they love it. And not only that, I've even had other hedge funds reach out to us that want to buy this turnkey business, because now what you've done is created a turnkey business. And that's really what's beautiful about the strategy.
Is Porsche also doing cross marketing? So like when they put out their brochures and stuff of the cars, they also show the house, and they even like maybe can say like more info about the house. Are they doing that kind of marketing?
So it's a local agreement. If we can get to the main Porsche overall, then there's like a whole nother restrictive covenant of what you do. I do believe that in that particular local central Porsche that represents that area of Mexico, that they actually will also promote it. And so, but here's the deal. Part of their deal is I got to buy a Porsche, right? So they win on it too. But it's a great way to kind of stack the value, develop a nice short-term rental property. And here's the cool thing, right? I built it right with my team and my partners and my staff. So guess what I get to do? I get to actually invite my staff to go there and do the opening ceremony. My kids get to enjoy it, and so it's perfectly infused. My family, my enjoyment, and my investment all working at the same time, which was really my main objective to begin with.
Right, which leads into the purpose behind
exactly.
Yeah, that's
you're getting another, exactly.
Well, before we get into that, I wrote down some things. I wrote architects, builders, marketing. I mean, there are definitely people that you need to get involved with to even get this kind of monstrosity, this luxurious item going. I mean, we talked about that the other day, which is like builders, architects. How are you vetting these people to be able to do a project like this? Like to be able to have that skill and experience? I mean, somebody that can design the blueprint behind, the pool at on the roof, or like the layered roof. Like, that's not something like I'm thinking about, like, how do you find those kind of people?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing. It takes some time to build a nice book of business, right? What I tell people is this: most people are driven by emotions, and so when they start looking for a potential builder, the first one that says something pretty to them, that's what they go with. I don't believe in that. I just told you this pretty picture. This project has taken over a year to design, and it has taken me literally month after month after month with our own team vetting various builders at different calibers. We ultimately landed on one because we wanted to make sure not only was the price fair, because we're paying a good price for that. It's not like we're paying on the cheap because you want to build quality, but because I'm in Mexico, especially, there's an additional layer of risk because I'm not from there, right? So I've got to make sure I've got the right team. And so part of the process that these guys will come in, and there's multiple layers that you can negotiate, from guarantees for building and construction, having a bond, to third-party companies that we've used, which actually vet the builder to make sure they have the capacity to do a project of that caliber, getting references from people. But ultimately, one of the reasons we ended up working with this particular builder that's working on these projects, this guy has built skyscrapers in Mexico City. He's built beautiful luxury properties. He understands the difference between pricing and value, and he went through our entire rigorous process. And during that rigorous process of communicating, having meetings and appointments, we recognized that also his vision had a very similar alignment with our vision. And for me, that's very important. And so that connection allowed us to really test things out. And in the first project, because he's been working on another project for us called Wabi Sabi, in that project, instead of doing 4 draws and giving him an initial release, he was even comfortable allowing us to do smaller bite-sized releases as he completed the work, till we got comfortable with the quality of the workmanship. And so that was essential. And even then, I trust, but I verify. So we have a third-party inspector that goes to verify the scope and make sure that we're covered. So there is a process, especially in the luxury. And you do need to have an architect. You have to have the engineers. You have to have the project managers. You have to have the solid builder. But here's the beauty. Once you take the time to do that, I can rinse and repeat with the same partnership. Like, we're designing 4 or 5 different projects as we speak while we're taking action and building these homes. So yes, it took me a year and a half, but now I'm building probably $15 to $20 million worth of properties that I'm investing in over time. And so this is a partnership for life now. These are guys that really care about us and have our backs.
Yeah, and I bet they only get better as you keep doing this. And they probably say, oh, on the next project, I wish we did this. And, oh, we got to do that because we saw that. Or maybe it's just an idea, a conceptual idea that came.
Oh, it's crazy how you have to go on the fly. Even the right designers, the best people. Like, I'll give you an example. One of the homes, they built a pool. And I know we're live. I can't say exactly what he said. But when they were doing the design for the pool area, they were making a bathroom. And the specs called it to a specific area, an angle, and a size. Well, when they got there and they were designing it, the team comes back and says, hey, I'm going to tell you something. If there was somebody who had a couple of extra sandwiches last week, I don't know if they can fit in the bathroom, let alone sit there. So on the fly, they had to literally expand the bathroom some and make some adjustments so that it would be something to the right standard, right? And so even when you think you planned it all, there's always something. And so it's good to have a team that's innovative, that on the fly they can pause, make some phone calls, make adjustments, and really make it right.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I bet marketing this luxury, or even the affordable side, is probably going to take its own way, right? Like, you're marketing it to a specific group. You're
Yes.
People at a price point, right? So, like, what's going into some of the marketing ideas?
So here's what's really interesting. Believe it or not, we have built a team in Tulum, Mexico. They have an office called Zepto, and we have a great partnership with them. And they help oversee some of the projects, but also they have a great marketing team. And what's crazy about Tulum, and I don't think this is going to happen in every community, so that please don't take this as like your silver bullet to bet an investment on. But the beautiful thing is, when you look at Tulum, it's very Instagrammable. Let's just call it that way. And so a lot of the influence marketers that we're dealing with out there will post pictures and selfies on the project and generate interest. And so what our team has really done is started cultivating relationships with some of the top producing international agents in various countries. I mean, our team recently sold a property to an investor out of Japan, and it was connected by a person in Japan. So now that agent, that group that's really selling luxury real estate. So it's almost like you're building a network of very successful, third-party agents that are out there who are saying, what else you have? Let's talk about the future. Give me a chance to sell it before you put it on the market. And so it really took a lot of effort to connect with those professionals, to have trade shows and have events, not just in the US, but in other countries. I mean, we've hosted trade shows in Spain. We've, like, it's crazy. It's so cool. But that's how you start connecting with the world to bring these people in on vacation. And then the last part was connecting with the managers, the short-term rental management companies that are out there bringing people in and letting them know, hey, there's a commission. If you have somebody that's interested, why not bring this up? And you already have them here, right? So why not bring that conversation up and be more intentional about indirectly selling this project? And so those are some of the key strategies that we've used to organically, if you will, get exposure to these properties.
Yeah, it just seems like some different concepts that you are implementing to get this out there, and you're not having to do like super heavy marketing. It's just really leveraging those connections that you keep making out there and just trying to tie those in. So I think that's great. So in all of this, I think it kind of ties into like what the focus is on what you do, which is invest with purpose,
Yes.
right? The idea of creating an experience. It sounds like making the experience a memorable one that everybody enjoys and can grow from. So what's the tie-in with the purpose?
So let me give you a picture. When I first started His Capital, before it was even His Capital, the first one was Home Investing Solutions. Actually, that's where the acronym came from. And I remember just getting on my knees and, God, what is this about? And the first thought that came to mind the moment I asked that question was to influence and feed nations. And it literally had zero to do with real estate investment. What I recognized from that moment forward is that the real estate business was to be a vehicle that would fuel the purpose. And as I've been in the industry, we've had so many privileges of helping in Uganda, I was physically there, dropping off 300,000 meals, connecting with people, finding ways to, in fact, even buy land with a nonprofit organization to teach people how to actually make their own food and sell it and trade. We've been in Ukraine. In fact, even during the war, I was just recently there. And so it's been really utilizing the business to fuel the purpose. And so now almost take a look at how much it's become so interconnected that we're investing. I recognize that part of my purpose also is to impart a legacy into my family. So I'm including them in my projects. I'm working on projects that are luxury, which mean they're also connecting with affluent people. And I'm able to influence them and bring them to a picture where I can say, what if you were part of this purpose? And instead of just making money, you took from the profits of this money and you invested in changing the world. What would happen if we all did this? And so these projects, believe it or not, create so much influence in these individuals that when you start teaching the principles of investing with purpose, your expansion of your impact is incredible. And so in essence, these short-term rental properties, these luxury brands, we're leveraging them to create awareness for example, going to Ukraine and going out there and bringing millions of dollars of resources from medical aid to clothing to food, you name it, is being able to bring people from all walks of life. And together, we don't just think about ourselves, but we also give back to make a difference in the lives of people. And I think that's what this whole investing with a purpose is all about. You don't eat the seed, you plant the seed. And as it produces fruit, you're able to take that fruit and you can give it to somebody who's hungry.
I love it. I could see that being last week on the Al Nicoletti show right there. It's having an impact on the community, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
What's the greater purpose? What's the greater view of this? And it's not just the investing. It's not just the real estate. It's how it's going to have an impact on others and their lives as well. So I think that's a great tie-in to what you are trying to achieve with the company and keep it growing. You're inspiring others by the projects that you're doing, right? By what you're working on and what it's having long term. The residual effect of it is going to be powerful. So that's great, Rick. I mean, it's different because we haven't had anybody talk about developments or luxury or things that you can do with builders and what you can do at different price points and how you don't have to spend thousands of dollars and then come out only like making this on on a build, right? Like there's ways to make it look really good at a low cost, at a low all in, and then you still are coming out. So I think that's great. Also, because we're almost at the end, which is I've been doing this at the end of my show, which is hot trends, something that's been really recent, a hot topic item, something that's been going on lately. And I know you were talking about how some of the recent buys that are high profits and short-term rentals and trying to get a better price point has been a hot trend. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, and so when you really take a look at where things are going in the market, you're recognizing there's a lot of uncertainty, and partially it's not because we're dealing with an economic deleveraging because of all this borrowed money or things that the consumers have actually overspent or over leveraged. These are things that are out of our control. When you're hearing about banks going under and crazy things, and so what I've looked at is that during these types of economic uncertainties, global uncertainties, people that have resources and even people trying to come up, they start asking themselves, what do I do? And so what I tell people is really become a student of where is the money flowing? And part of the big trending piece for us has been with the bank issues, with this economy, where is the money flowing and where is money being stabilized? And so I'm grateful that real estate just happens to be one of the top real estate asset classes that even billionaire hedge funds are purchasing right now to get the value. And so what I just try to do is really focus on where the flow of money is. I try to understand the why. And then I try to position myself, even if I'm starting at a much lower level than these $50 billion capital deployments. And I ask myself, how do I leverage it? And so when I'm building some of these projects, some of the inspiration for some of the developments of these deals came from working with the end of mind of potentially selling it to those hedge funds. And so then understanding, why are these guys buying almost at premium, like millions and millions of dollars? And what's unique about this has been that these companies now for the last 5 years saw the writing on the wall, and they've already been investing in these value-based real estate asset classes because they wanted to hedge inflation. They wanted to have stable cash flow. They wanted depreciation. And at the same time, they wanted appreciation on their asset class over the next couple of years. And so when I talk about flowing, don't pigeonhole yourself into one strategy based on what we're seeing here. It's about becoming a student of the market so that you can position yourself, even if it's a tiny fraction in comparison to these bigger guys, so that you can position yourself to win and win big over time.
I like that a lot. Always being a student and trying to continually learn something you didn't know even you thought you knew. And maybe things just kind of change as they go, right? Like you think you know everything, you don't, and you always have to level up your skills and education always. So, like you said, analyzing the markets. You may not know it like the massive hedge funds that are out there that seem to price things higher than others, but they got their numbers down, they got their data down, but they're doing the research too. They're doing the education. It's not like they're just pulling it out of thin air.
Right.
So I think that's great. Yeah. Just knowing your price points, getting educated, always being a student. Rick, awesome stuff. Yeah, we got your QR code. You guys got to connect with Rick. I mean, him and his team and what they do and how they're able to help partner with people, and then the connections that they have and that they're able to help others leverage with is really awesome. So scan that QR code right there with Rick and definitely get connected. Rick, how can people get connected with you and your team, or maybe see you at the next West Palm Beach RIA trade show or wherever it is?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the best way to do it is connect with us either on social media. Go to hiscapitalgroup.com or rickmelero.com. If you go to rickmelero.com, I had wrote a book called Investing with a Purpose, and we're giving that away with the audio. And so if you sign up and get that, I really believe it'll give you a lot of insights and a lot more depth with regards to how those fundamental pieces happen. You'll get a little bit of my story of how I started real estate, how I failed forward, and some of the key things that have helped me to succeed in real estate. But then also, like, be on the lookout. We have some amazing opportunities to work with professionals like you. So just look us up. We're here to help. We got an office in Orlando, so you can come swing by. Yesterday, funny enough, what are the chances of that? Yesterday, we had a client who was at the TBRIA event who drove all the way down with his kids.
Oh,
and
wow.
met us in the Orlando office. awesome guy. And he said, I brought my kids because I wanted them to meet you in person. And he says, kids, listen to what he has to say. It was so awesome. It was such a great moment. And so we're here. We're real. We're doing it every day. So if you want to swing by the office, more than happy to schedule something with you guys as well.
Sometimes as speakers, we don't really know the impact we have on others. And like when we're up there and like, come visit us, people will take action and like do it. It's like, it's crazy, right? Like you're like, whoa, they actually did this. But that's awesome. See, look at that. You're not just impacting the person investing, you're impacting future generations, and they want their children to learn something that either they didn't know that others do, like you, or to just get into it early, right? Be a student early on in the game. So that's that's probably even inspiring for you out there.
It is. Oh man, humbling. It makes me definitely focus on how can I improve and be a better example, because people are watching.
And then you're talking about it at another speaking event. So that's great. I just want to tell you, Rick, we had great comments. We have loyal fans and followers of the Al Nicoletti Show. Teresa, she was saying, I think earlier on about just the different ways you can get into the affordable stuff of the affordable housing. She said, Rick, that is amazing that they get a deed, pride of ownership, and can finance multiple ways. So that was a good golden nugget. And Robert Rodriguez, what's going on, man? He was talking about, I think he loves that concept of the co-branding, co-marketing with like Porsche and all these big brands. He called it a gem right there. And he said, what you're talking about with investing with purpose, it's sparking a hope with people. So that's really, really cool. Teresa said, this is the first time I've heard someone talk about partnering for real estate with non-real estate related brands.
Very cool. I'm glad it's a new idea.
Yeah. And then Angela, she just actually chimed in. Great interview, full of insightful information, investing with the purpose. Keep doing what you're doing with excellence and vision. Woo! There you go, Rick.
Dead on, man. I appreciate that.
Awesome. You dropped so many cool things in this episode. I know people could go back and look at just the affordable stuff or just the luxury item or just, investing with purpose in total. But as I do on my show at the end, I have a segment called Final Words, Final Thoughts. And it can be anything. It can be anything in your investing world, real estate, life, business, education, you name it. I leave it to you. It could be one word. I think we had somebody with one word or two words. and then it could be, or it could be a 2-minute rant, whatever you decide. Final words, final thoughts, Rick Melero.
When I think about all of us really making a difference in our lives in the future, it's not just about sparking just an idea. What I'm really, if you look at it this way, an inheritance is what you leave your kids when you're gone. That's your finances, the things you've worked so hard for. A legacy is what you leave in people when you're gone, that lives on. And so if there's one additional thing, additional to the real estate strategies that we talked about, is you need to remember that we are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not an act, it's a habit. And so if you want to be a successful real estate investor or a successful parent, successful mom, dad, husband, whatever it is, if you really want to pivot, start finding the good habits that you need to emulate over time, adapt them little by little. And when you look back a few years from now, you'll realize that you were a product of the habits that you intentionally adapted. And that is what's going to make transformational change in your life, not just today, but in the years to come. And I will tell you from experience that even my kids, I'm looking at them now, they're not emulating what daddy says. They're emulating what daddy is doing consistently. And that's what they brag about to their friends. So remember, if you're a mom, a dad, somebody else is watching you. Are they watching inconsistency, or are they watching somebody who's building consistent habits and they're going to follow after your footsteps?
I love it. We're going to leave it right there. Rick, awesome advice. I loved having you on the show talk about all these really interesting things in the affordable market and the luxury market and investing with the purpose. Beautiful message. Thanks for coming on, spending time with me on the show. And I'll see you soon at an event. And I can't wait to be on a panel again. That was a lot of fun. Just being there and just going back and forth. I couldn't help myself but like stand up every time they needed me to speak. I just needed to get up out of the chair. I don't know. It's crazy.
I love your energy, man. Thanks so much for having me. What a blessing and honor for sure.
Thank you, Rick. We'll connect soon. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, everybody. Another episode. Yeah, I know, Robert. Fire. I mean, really interesting concept with what he's talking about with the co-branding and co-marketing with the non-real estate partnerships, and then just the different models and price points that you can get into if you go more of the affordable versus the luxury, what to look for. I think that there's just so many different areas you can look at, and you don't have to just pick one. You can keep your mind open to all of this. And like Rick's talking about, be a student, always be educating yourself, learn more about this kinds of stuff. I mean, just get out there and just figure it out, right? Just go and try to see and partner with the people that have these connections and leverage those relationships, right? Partner with people like Rick and get out there and meet these investors. So, Teresa, thank you. Yeah, I know. I thought it was great. Fantastic. So if you want more content like the episode we just had with Rick Melero, and if you missed any of it, you got to go back to the beginning and start over and hear that whole presentation, especially if you are a listener on Spotify and iTunes. I know you all are all out there. I can't even talk at the end of the episode now. I know you are all out there because I see the downloads come in. If you couldn't watch the images that Rick was talking about as we went slide by slide, our content is on YouTube. I mean, you'll see the visuals on the YouTube channel. So if you're listening and you wanted to catch that, feel free to jump on the YouTube channel under Al Nicoletti, zoom in, maybe, I don't know, it was like 20 minutes in, and you'll see the images there. You don't want to miss it because there were some really cool concepts. But if you want more content on tonight's episode, make sure you check out the Al Nicoletti YouTube channel, the Facebook page under Al Nicoletti, the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play under the Al Nicoletti Show, and all the micro content dropping on Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti with all the crazy stuff on probates, partitions, quiet titles, the weird title world, all that kind of crazy stuff. It's all out there. So, and yeah, if you scan the QR code, this has been like great. I don't know if anybody's noticed over the last like 6 episodes, we keep putting the QR code out there. If you scan the QR code, the link tree comes up, and that's where you're going to find all the different links for the website, the Spotify, iTunes, so many different things and content we have going on out there. So again, another Wednesday. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. I know you all are out there. We love it. We will see you next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, with the Probate Fox, Ernie Vargas. That is going to be a great episode. You don't want to miss it. So many interesting strategies and tactics when getting into probate. So I will see you all next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.